Okay, so following on from our study of the key concepts, last week we looked at language, the L. Now we're going to look at I, industry. Why is industry important? Okay, well, to begin with, they create the products that we form and that we have a look at and we study. And from these created products, we have this consumption by audiences. Now, the more that audiences consume the products, the more they increase in popularity. And because they increase in popularity, we then have more products being created. So without media industries, there's no way in which the media can exist. And that's why it's really important for us to understand what's going on in the background behind a product and not just what we see in front of us. So industries control what media products are created. They also control the content that we're allowed to look at and also the messages behind a product. So because they can have so much control, they have a greater ability to influence, to persuade, and to really control us as an audience. They're also affected by what's happening at the time in the world. So they provide a representation of sort of history as we continue going through time. And they show the influence of that history on a particular media sector. So by looking at who owns a product and who controls what can indicate what parts of the market are popular and also how far their influences stretch. But industry also controls the companies creating the media. So there are groups and regulatory bodies that impose rules and regulations onto different companies to protect the consumer. Because if that didn't exist, then these companies and conglomerates would have free rein to do whatever they liked in the media. So let's have a look at the sun, because this is one of the products that you're going to need to know the industry of in order to sort of access your exam. So why is it important that we understand the industry behind this paper? Well, first of all, the Sun's owned by a group called News UK. So we can tell from that company what other products they might own and who owns that, and etc. So the person who owns News UK is Rupert Murdoch. At one point, he also owned Sky, Fox, and he does have a hand in other publications such as the Times. So this one person has a real huge access to a massive audience. As a paper, this company also subscribes to the Editor's Code of Conduct. So there is a list of rules and regulations explaining what journalists can and can't do while working for the Sun. And if they go against that, then the body in charge of all of those rules and regulations, IPSO, jumps in. We know that the paper's a tabloid, so we can tell that this is probably going to be sensational, and any of the stories that appear on that front page are likely to be dramatised or made more entertaining. And typically, this then appeals to a lower class demographic. It's also available in hard copy, so it exists in print. But as well as this, it's got a huge online presence. It's got its own website, it has social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all increasing the amount of influence that it has over different audiences, because now it means that anybody in the world can access the Sun. The paper is the best-selling tabloid in the UK. It sold 1.3 million copies as of May 2019. It's also been affected by historical events, because Rupert Murdoch also owned the News of the World. So when the scandal surrounding that company emerged, it took a hit in all of its other publications. Now, the Sun has also created its own history when it comes to controversy, because it was boycotted in Liverpool following the way that it reported on the Hillsborough tragedy. If you guys would like me to go through the Hillsborough tragedy and the News of the World scandal, by the way, please pop a comment down below, and I'll do individual videos on those for you. Now, the Sun have often taken credit for the appointment of new prime ministers, showing their influence by politics and within politics. But their ideology means that they tend to lean towards conservatives because they have very traditional points of view. And like many other papers, it makes most of its money through advertising within the paper. It also has a lot of synergy, so it partners with companies to appeal to low-income families, and we can see that through the advert for the holidays from £9.50. So all of this makes up the industry surrounding the Sun, and more, because this is all that I could fit onto the PowerPoint, if I'm being honest. And so it's really important that we understand the background to these papers, because that then affects what we see and how we see it and what our views are. Now it's also important because in your exam, media industry occurs in both papers. So component 1 has an entire section on industry, while component 2 has got a high chance of the industry appearing on the paper. So whereas we see in component 2, media industries popping up in section A or B, the likelihood is it will appear in one or the other. We just don't know which one. Even though industries are not mentioned specifically for component 3, which is your coursework project, you need to keep in mind what that industry standard is, because if your work doesn't look the way that all of the others in the industry looks, it's not going to get a very good mark. So what are our exam questions like on industry then? So for component 1, we've got very small stepped questions, but it's asking us for direct influences within that industry, the organisation that regulates film, examples of age certificates, why we might have age certificates. For paper 2, explaining why websites are important to the industry. So we've actually got it mentioned there in the question itself. Okay, so here are our key terms for today. If you haven't already, please subscribe. If you click the button below and the little bell icon next to it, you get instant notifications every time I upload a new video. You can get in touch with me if you have any questions or comments or any ideas for new videos. Just pop them in the comments section below, or get in touch with me through Twitter at media_revision. And I'll see you guys later for another video.